So yeah, today's topic, we are talking about tools to increase efficiency and productivity in cats. So there are basically within the first, let's say 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on how things go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that I want to talk about. We try to keep these pretty brief and then open it up to a Q&A at the end. So as far as today, topics we're going to cover, we're going to dig into the browser extension. We're going to talk about email and calendar integration. We will talk about the meeting scheduler, and we'll also discuss SMS and texting. Now, one thing to note, and I will mention this quite a bit, this is all free. This is all included within CATS. There is no special I don't even know how plan or like tier. This is all included with the CATS subscription that you're paying. So again, if you're not using these, that's part of how we do this. These are great tools that you can use to kind of help out your process throughout the day. All right, so let's dig in. I'm going to stop a little bit of the sharing thing here, and I'm going to change windows, and we will get going. Again, we will briefly discuss kind of the topics I mentioned. At the end, we'll open it up for a Q&A, but if you do have questions throughout, feel free to type them into the questions window. Jeff is with us, like I said, and he's going to be answering those questions as they come through. All right, well, let's dig in. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is the CATS browser extension. So really high overview, what the browser extension does. We have it for Chrome, we have it for Firefox. It gives you the ability to add candidates from a number of websites. Today, we're going to focus on LinkedIn without needing to like download a resume, email it, upload it manually. It happens all within a couple clicks. If you don't have it installed, the first place you'll need to go, just right here on our main website, if you go to cats1.com and you click on downloads, there are links right here. Download it for Chrome, download it for Firefox. It will essentially ask you to sign in once it's downloaded, and you're good to go. And I will refer throughout this webinar to our knowledge base. Within CATS, you can go to it. So if you click on this question mark icon, our knowledge base is right here. Otherwise, it's just help.cats1.com. And if I can type and talk at the same time, for any of you that have spoken with me previously, nope, I still can't do it. This will actually walk you through kind of what the steps are to get it installed. Again, just a couple clicks to allow some permissions. And then once we're up and running, when I'm on LinkedIn, let's say I want to go to, I don't know, Robin's profile here. Let's say this is a candidate that I want to add into my CATS database. All I need to do is you'll see, and it's kind of hard to see potentially on this window, but I've got this CATS icon right here next to my like 50 ad blockers that says, hey, I can pull this into CATS. I can make a profile out of this. When I click it, it's going to pop out this window, and it's going to find everything that it can on this page. It creates a nice little PDF resume, and it adds it into CATS. Just pops up that second window just for you to review. Now, if I jump over to CATS, let me go over to my candidates. Boom. Here is Robin. Here's all the info that we could parse from the page. Now, most of the time, and you guys are recruiting will especially know, most candidates are not going to have their phone number or their email address potentially on their LinkedIn profile. If it does, we will absolutely grab it and we will put it in the appropriate spot. However, at bare minimum, we will have a link over to their social media. So let's say I run a search on this candidate, which I know we talked about last month, and let's say I'm looking for somebody with agriculture experience. Boom, Robin here is going to pop up as a search result, and then at minimum I can click over to their LinkedIn, and from there I can shoot them an in-mail, do my recruiter thing from over there. So super, super, super handy way to add candidates into LinkedIn with just a few clicks. Now, what I did here was essentially I just put Robin in my general overall database, which is totally fine. But let's say I'm sourcing for one particular job, and as I find candidates that I think are going to be a fit, I want to put them into the pipeline for that job as well. We've talked about workflow. We've talked about the cool sort of automated things that you can do with workflow with respect to maybe I want to automatically send them an email, something like that. So if I want to put this candidate in the pipeline right away, I can also do that. So I'm going to jump over to, let's say, Dave over here. And let's say, Dave, I want to do pretty much the same process. But you can see a couple options up here. I can add them as a candidate, or I can add them as a contact. I won't go into the intricacies of what the differences are. There's a couple different versions of cats out there depending on what you're on, but in this instance, we're going to add them as a candidate. In doing so, I can also add them to a pipeline. So if I click this button, this link rather right here, and maybe I just start typing in the name of a specific job. I've got digital marketing specialist, for example. Let me click that. It's going to do the exact same process. I'm going to add the candidate over into cats. I'm going to click view. So this will take me directly to the candidate record this time. And I can also see that they are currently in the pipeline. Looks like it got moved over here. I like it over on the right. Customization that you can do, right? You can see they're currently in the pipeline for this digital marketing specialist already. And then they're automatically put to the status. Maybe I've got some things that happen as a result of that status change. So again, a lot of cool things that you can do with that browser extension. There are a handful of other sites that the extension does work on. We've got those listed here. I'm not able to dig into a Monster, Career Builder, Dice, Indeed account at the moment, but it works essentially the same way. If you're viewing someone's profile, if you're viewing someone's resume, on those sites, click the browser extension, and that's going to pull candidates over into cats. All right. And again, as we're going through this, as questions come up, feel free to type them in the questions section within the GoToWebinar panel, and we will answer those as we go through them, and especially at the end. All right. So that kind of happens outside of cats a little bit. The next several things I'm going to mention all sort of happen within cats. So as a user, logged in, this is one of the first things I tell people, but again, we've been around for 15 years. A lot of you I haven't spoken with initially, on that sort of onboarding process. One of the first places I tell people to go, click your avatar if it's up there, might just be the first letter of your first name, and go to my profile. And these 3 sections right over here are going to set up some tools and some processes that are going to help you throughout your lifetime with cats. So first we'll talk about email and calendar integration. As a new user, I just come here and I toggle this on, and I'll kind of switch back and forth between a couple different windows here. So this is one I have set up for kind of like a new user on this site. So if you haven't set this up yet, what you would do, click on your avatar up here, you go to my profile, and you're just going to toggle this on over here on the right. And from there, it's going to ask you to kind of go through a few different things. It'll ask you to sign in through your account. You'll see Nihilus.com listed here. Nihilus is the third-party provider that we use for the email and calendar sync. So, sometimes you see something in there that's not cats, and it's like, okay, well, I want cats to do it. What is this other thing? This is still us, kind of, sort of. Pardon me. This is the third party that we do the calendar sync with. Okay, jumping back over into the account that has been up and running. So essentially what the email sync does, there are a number of tools, or there's a couple different ways rather that you can send email out of Cats. And as you guys know, emails that you send out of Cats are going to come from the email address that you have over here. We're never going to pretend like we're going to replace Outlook or Gmail for you. We're not a full functioning email client. But one of the cool things that we can do with that email sync is if I go into a candidate record, so essentially, let's take it back a step. So I email a candidate from Cats, that hits that candidate's inbox. They email me back. That's going to hit my my Gmail inbox from here, and I'm going to carry on that conversation, from Gmail. But what Cats will do will automatically log the incoming and outgoing messages as long as your email address here and the email address on the candidate profile match. And we'll log those conversations within the feed that you see right here. Now, again, this can take some time. It can take 15 minutes. It can take a half hour sometimes for those email messages to show up. So it's not something you're going to sit in Cats and kind of wait for that email to come through. It's more logged for historical purposes, right? So if I check out this profile 6 months from now, I can see that John, my colleague, had a conversation with this person back in April, and they're not a good fit. Or maybe it was I had a conversation with them, and they talked, hey, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. Cool, this job has it. Hey, remember that conversation we had back in March? And they'll be like, no, but okay. So it's a nice way to kind of log those messages historically without having to jump back and forth between your inbox and Cats, and B, any like colleagues or team members that may have had those email conversations outside of Cats, you'll see that logged here as well. And again, you'll see the conversations. If I click on one of these, you can sort of see, the entirety of the email conversation. So pretty cool stuff that happens there. And again, all you have to do, go into your profile, toggle this on, allow permissions, and you're good to go. So that's email integration. On top of that, we have calendar integration. So just like Cats will talk to your email address and vice versa, we'll also talk to your calendar that you have on Gmail or Outlook. I hate clicking this thing, but you know what? We're going to do it. Cats has its own calendar. And for a long time, it kind of worked on its own. You could sort of send outgoing, so you could send events from your external calendar into Cats, but not vice versa. This was years back. Now it's a two-way sync, so you never really have to look at this thing. But just to kind of give you an idea of how it works, if I go into a candidate's profile, I can schedule an event. And it looks, kind of sort of similar to what you would see on like Outlook, Gmail, something along those lines. Now, what happens technically when I create this event is it gets thrown onto this Cats calendar that I have set up over here. And again, on its own, totally fine. Most people don't want to keep track of two separate calendars. So what this will do is this will then sync up with your Outlook calendar or with your Gmail calendar, so that, again, events that show up here will go out to your external calendar and vice versa. So once that sync is enabled, you really don't have to look at this ever again. But the idea is you can create events within Cats via a workflow trigger or, manually, and that'll end up going on your Outlook calendar. So very, very helpful feature to have there. And then to put another layer on top of that, I always want to talk about that first, because this piece right here, the meeting scheduler, is very, very reliant on you having that calendar integration hooked up. Now, if you guys have ever used like Calendly, or I know HubSpot has a very similar feature where it says, hey, here's my calendar, here's the times I'm available. Go ahead and grab a time that works for you. And we essentially just create this link that you can send out to your candidates, interview, people involved in an interview, you name it. And there's a lot of settings on that. So if you ever want to go in and configure like what days of the week you're available, what times you're available, that type of thing. Again, those are all settings that you can configure in here. Now, on its own, this works solely off of the CATS calendar. So now you can kind of see why you want those two calendars to talk to each other. Because if your CATS calendar isn't talking to your external calendar, it's not going to know when those events on your external calendar are. So again, the first step, absolutely for sure, you want to make sure you're going in and getting your external calendar synced up. That's in this section up here. Then usually after that, step 2 is to go into the meeting scheduler. Go ahead and get that link copied or that link created. Configure what days and times you're available by default. And then you can even add like custom durations, for example. By default, it'll say, hey, how much time do you need, right? And they can pick 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. But what you can do is if I hit this custom duration, and let's say, okay, I only want them to be able to book me for 15 minutes. That's a link that I can copy. And if I paste that into my browser and added this little question mark, D equals 15, now it's only giving the person that's viewing this calendar a 15-minute option. And we have talked about workflow pretty recently, pretty extensively in these webinars, but this is one of my favorite examples. This is one of my favorite things that you can do in CATS is, let me copy this link. And then what I can do in my workflow, let's have it set up to where when I change a candidate to a specific status, let's say this phone screen status, I can automatically send an email that contains that link to my calendar. So at that point, I can look at it. Let's say I'm looking at a pipeline that has, a number of different people on it. I'm running my search, which we talked about last time. I've narrowed it down to these 3 people. Let's check the box over here. Let's change their status to phone screen. And then what that's going to do, again, it's going to send out that email that contains a link to my calendar. I can send that to all 3 people at once via the button right here. So again, calendar integration on top of meeting scheduler is a super, super handy way to be able to send out. You don't have to play phone tag. You don't have to send, leave voicemails. You don't have to send emails back and forth. What works for you? What works for you? What works for you? You can say, hey, look, here's my calendar. Go ahead and grab a time that works for you, and we'll go from there. And then it automatically, once a candidate picks a time, I guess that's a good thing to look at. Let's jump back there. So once a candidate picks a time on this calendar, they're asked to punch in their first name, last name, email, and phone number. And then an event is automatically created on your calendar. An email is sent to them to confirm, and it's already set up, so you're good to go. Okay, cool. We're making pretty good time here. One more thing I wanted to throw out to you guys, and then we can for sure open it up for a Q&A, is texting, is SMS. So again, I'm going to jump over to a different window for maybe a user that doesn't have this set up, so I can kind of walk through the process a little bit more. All right, so again, to get to any of this, you're going to go to your avatar up here, and you go to My Profile. And we talked about email and calendar sync. We talked about meeting scheduler. The other sort of big item I wanted to check off the list for today is texting, SMS. And again, if you ever want to recap on any of this, you can always check out our knowledge base. If I type in SMS, that's going to take me to this article that explains it, honestly, probably better than I will. a little more in depth, a little more pictures, but this will really go in depth as far as what the functionality is here, kind of how texting works. So within CATS, if you want to turn this thing on, just hit the toggle here, and we will ask you to punch in an area code. Once that's done, we will give you a number of phone numbers from which you can text. This becomes your CATS phone number. So essentially you can just choose one here, select it, which kind of does its thing, and I'm good to go. So I'm going to jump over to a screen that's got a little bit more set up texting wise. Okay, here we go. So again, I've got my texting number here. When I'm in CATS, what I can do, I've got Jeff's number brought up here. Next to someone's phone, you will see this little speech bubble icon. So if I click that, it's going to pop up this little window in the bottom right. And it almost looks like an IM, but that does hit their phone, that hits their text. So let me just type in. And it kind of looks like that. And again, the number itself is going to hit the, and I am texting back, boom, boom, boom. So again, you can sort of see the conversation that happens there. If I don't happen to have that open, you'll also get a little notification that pops up right here that says, hey, you've got a text message. If that text message sits unread for more than 10 minutes, we're actually going to email you as well that says, hey, you've got an unread text sitting in CATS. Click here to take a look. One of the cool things about that as well is this is gonna stick with me. So if I jump over here to my candidates, and maybe I am running a quick search over here for people. Let me just run one that says product manager. This is over here, and I can type back and forth, and I can sort of keep that up. I can keep that conversation going while I'm working over here in CATS. I can also use templates from that texting. So if I wanted to hit this little icon down here in the bottom right, I can say, yep, this is one of the templates that I saved. Hit that and send. Now, again, the texting itself all sort of lives within CATS. It doesn't necessarily work on your phone. Now, you can use CATS in your mobile browser, and it's going to work, pretty much like it would on your desktop. Mobile app in the works soon. No promises on that, of course, in the development world, but that's something we've definitely been working on, and that's going to involve a little bit more SMS texting. So, yeah, the number itself, again, it's just a number that you kind of have from CATS. The texting itself all sort of lives within CATS. You're free to send them your actual phone number through that piece. So, by all means, we never really envisioned carrying out the entire recruitment process through text. It's just more of a way to sort of reach out to say, hey, got feedback on your most recent interview. Give me a call when you can. Or, of course, the initial like, hey, I've got this job that I think is going to be a good fit. Let me know if you want to talk about it. Things like that. Nothing, you're not going to carry over, the entire texting process. 100 out. I saw a question on there. There's 100 outgoing texts per user per month in your site. all pooled together. So as you saw there, I have 5 active users on this like test environment that I'm in here. So I have 500 texts that I can send this month. So let's say I just have 2 people that are like actually, texting. That's fine. They can each send 250. Or one person can send all 500. It doesn't really matter. It's just sort of all pooled together based off of the number of users that you have within your site. So, all right. I think that just about covers it. Oh, one more thing I wanted to talk about too. So I mentioned the workflow, and I always want to tie, features that we have, things you can do back to the workflow, because that's kind of one of the core features of Cats, if not the core feature. You can also send out a text via a workflow trigger. So before, where I said, okay, phone screen, I want to send them an email that has a link to my calendar. I can also send out a text, and that text can have a link to my calendar. So I can throw somebody in a pipeline, change their status, send them a text. The text contains a link to my calendar that shows that I'm available. Assuming they're on a smartphone, they can click that link. That meeting scheduler link is going to work on their mobile browser. They can pick a time and book me, and it all happens within a couple clicks. So again, little things that you can do, little tools, sort of bells and whistles that we have within Cats that I wanted to feature today that really, 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 I think will help you save some time throughout the process. All right, questions are flying in. Thanks again, Jeff, for getting those answered. I'm gonna take a pause for just a moment here. Cool, we're right at about 1:30, perfect. And we will spend the next 5-10 minutes, something like that, depending on how the questions are going, answering those. So feel free to send those through. I'm going to take a drink and I'll start answering your questions here in just a moment. Thanks, guys.
Hi, this is Jeff, just unmuting myself. We've answered a lot of questions here,
Didn't know you
but
could
some
mute.
questions that might be better suited for the group would be to cover SMS templates one more time, and then cover the SMS budget, or how many texts do we get a month, just for people that joined late or weren't paying attention, not pointing any fingers at anybody. But other than that, I hope I gave good answers to everybody. Feel free to keep questions coming in. I'm here to answer them. But yeah, take it away, Zach.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. So we'll talk about the budget thing first because it's more of a talk about than a show thing. It's 100 texts per active user in your system. If you ever want to know how many active users you have in your system, you just can kind of come here, settings, user management, and anyone that's not like disabled, for example, basically you're paying for each active user in your system, so you'll probably know how many that you have. But yeah, it's 100 per user per month, and that all gets pooled together. So in this instance, I have 5 active users, so I can actually send out as a site total 500 texts. Individual users aren't limited on the numbers that they can send, of that total. So yeah, that all gets pulled together, and that total number is 100 per user in your site, and that resets at the first of the month. You can purchase additional texts. I don't think I've got a good spot to show you that here, but let's take a double check here. Let's jump back over to Jeff. So again, this isn't a real, I'm using the finger quotes here, site. But you do have the option to buy more if you click the drop down right here. Oh yeah, here we go. So it's basically 200 texts per $10. So $10 for each additional 200 texts. And same thing, those are pooled with amongst all the users in your site. Now, as far as templates go, what I can do, again, this little IM window that comes through, if I click this little icon down here, it's going to show me templates that have already been created. If I want to add a template, just hit the button. And you can type it in here. So test, I'll just say for that one, add a template, and then boom, that's the template I've saved. Hit test. There I can, essentially load the template from there. So that's how those are created. All right, I'm going to take a peek over at the questions too. Do SMS messages roll over to the next month? They do not. It's a use them or lose them kind of setup, and they do reset the first of each month. So we see as a company a lot of outgoing texts towards the end of the month. All right, let's see. Yeah, I think a lot of these, and maybe some of these that have been answered that I can just sort of throw out for everyone. Someone mentioned in the CATS meeting scheduler, how would a candidate cancel a meeting? That's a great question. So the meeting itself is going to be, once it's created, it's just going to, any other sort of communications or settings for that meeting, you would want to handle through your calendar. So as a candidate, if I create that meeting, it's then going to throw that event on my calendar. And then from there, I could cancel it. I could send out an email saying, hey, this isn't going to work. What time works for you, that type of thing. So yeah, so that's where that would go through. What else can we sort of knock out here? We talked about the templates. We talked about the outgoing texts. Yeah, Linda had a great question too. So yeah, and this is what I refer to quite a bit, and frankly, most of what I talk about on these webinars is already online. So if you go to the support icon up here, there's links right here for our knowledge base and for training videos. So the knowledge base is usually where I tell you to start, because most of the videos that we have are sort of embedded, kind of within CATS, but you're more than welcome to jump straight to the videos too. So when you're in there, hit the question mark, go to training videos, and there's a pretty good playlist set up. And the nice thing about them, most of them are around 2 or 3 minutes in length. So it's not something you have to really, really invest a lot of time into. You can kind of skip around to stuff that's relevant and that's not. If you wanted to learn a little bit more about that texting piece, we have a 2-minute, 40-second video specifically on texting within CATS. And you get to hear our former employee Sam's lovely voice through there. So yeah, I highly recommend, if you haven't yet, check out the knowledge base, check out the training videos. There's a lot of good stuff within there. All right, cool. Well, I think that's going to just about do it for today. Again, this entire webinar is recorded and it is sent out 24 hours from when we started it. So 1 o'clock Central Time tomorrow, you should get an email with a link to this webinar. Any questions that we didn't get to, we will for sure shoot you a quick email. We should have your info here, and we should be all set. So with that, I will let you guys get back to your Tuesday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining in today, and hope to talk to you again next month. Thanks, guys. Take care.